Welcome to Maple and Myrrh. Today's episode is on the topic of evil, but just a trigger warning because we do venture into some pretty hard topics. And if you need to take a break, please do. We don't want you to wander into something unexpected.
I think we should mention this podcast mentions pedophilia, childhood abuse, sexual abuse, and just want you to be aware of that in case you don't want to listen to it. That's totally fair.
This is Maple and Myrrh, a queer Canadian look at spirituality for those who feel unrooted. These are conversations about the path to remembering who we are.
Evil is his one and only name. Dun 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 dun. Hey everyone! I have here trans icon Mr. Teri Westerby.
And I'm here with the brave, bold, brilliant, and hilarious Britt.
I just surprised Teri. It was like, I'm opening. I'm not going to tell you what it is. Let's do this.
We just actually watched the Austin Powers films not that long ago. Again.
They hold up.
They do.
Do you remember how enraged people were that Beyonce was going to be like Foxy Cleopatra at the time? Do you remember? People were like, we're boycotting Austin Powers because Beyonce was going to be in it.
I don't remember that.
Maybe I'm the only one who cares about pop culture here.
Well, I was a very deprived child. I really come to realize like the only things that I grew up on were South Park and The Simpsons, and I didn't even know what they were referring to when they were making their jokes. So
I also forget, like, I grew up in Colorado, right? So like I was like much news. Well, I'm saying much. Why? Because I'm wrong. MTV, like MTV News. Like I lived on MTV. When I came to Canada, much was okay, but it didn't have like the same budget behind it, like many Canadian things. When you compare it to like the US version, it's always like a solid 15.
Yeah, we do have a good reason for that, where we want, Canadian people to do good things and have space for that. But it is hard when you miss out on like a lot of pop culture. But Shirley has showed me a lot of stuff. Shirley has shown me a ton of movies because apparently their mom would go to like the store and they would be like 5 movies for $10, and then she'd just come home with like 5 movies, and so they had this huge movie collection. So they've seen absolutely every movie that ever existed.
Were they good movies, or was it like knockoff? It's like the Pink Mile. It's like the Green Mile adjacent type movies.
Well, some of them were really bad movies, not like knockoffs. They were just, the movies that weren't really good. But some of them, they were just normal movies. It was just a thing that used to happen where the DVD would come out and then it would be an old movie and then they would sell it for like half price or a third price because they want to make shelf space for the new movies. But now everything's on Netflix and streaming, and so everything's available all the time. But back in the day, you could buy a bunch of movies for like $5. And then you could watch them anytime you wanted. And you didn't have to pay a subscription fee. Oh, what a time to be alive.
Oh man, did you ever get suckered into that like buy 12 CDs for 99 cents scam? Because I did.
No, again, I don't want to say deprived child, but like.
Do they have that in Canada?
Yes,
okay.
they did. But it's just an unsupported neurodivergent child who had absolutely no idea how the world worked. I've heard of these things, but the idea of actually engaging in them was like, I could do that?
I was all stressed out and like saving up my allowance money because like they kept coming, and like I realized like I was hiding it from my mom.
So you were like spending all your allowance on these DVDs?
No, she ended up calling because like the bills kept coming and they were just like more and more and more. And then my mom ended up calling and was like, she's like 11 years old and signed up for this. This is not legal. And then it stopped.
And there's a lot of that in the States as well. I think that's a big thing that Canada also has, is more like laws protecting their civilians from scams and from potential like really bad financial pitfalls.
Hopefully.
Yeah, we do have a pretty rigorous, and a lot of people complain about the amount of regulation we have, but we do have a pretty rigorous regulation system, financial system. The most predatory things that we seem to have in Canada financially are the like payday loan things.
Oh my God. On Hastings, like in my neighborhood, there must be like 5. And it's like one will go down and then another will pop up. They're so predatory. They're like, and like the neighborhood I live in is one of the poorest in Vancouver. And I say that when like properties in it are still like $1 million plus, right? But it's like the dichotomy of people that live in the neighborhood, and it's so sad. And like they do trick or treating along Hastings at Halloween, like in all the shops. And when we went to go in there, I was like, we're gonna go in this one a few times. We're gonna like keep getting their candy. Tell them they're evil when you're in there.
That was a really good segue into what I'm hoping we can kinda talk about, because I wonder if we have pretty distinct positions on the concept of evil and whether or not and again, there's a whole bunch of different ways that evil can be seen and looked at, but whether or not you think evil actually exists as like its own entity or force, or if like whether it's distinct from humans or whether it is a part of humans.
Yeah, I that's interesting. What are your thoughts? And how are we breaking this down? Are we just
This is the thing, it's a big topic because there's different ways people look at evil, and then there's like different religions that have evil brought into the religion in different ways, and then there's like the devil, and there's like spirits and entities, and so there's all sorts of different ways that we can look at evil. But especially as a queer person, like I get told all the time that I'm evil or that I'm doing evil, or that I'm like a member of Satan or something like that. Like I have a nefarious agenda. I'm only like wanting to harm people, and it makes me wonder, like, what do these people think evil is if they just look at me and
Mhm.
judge me because of my identity, what they think I'm doing, and then how could I look at how we kind of paint evil as a society in general, and like knowing that people call me evil, well, if that, then maybe they're saying the same thing about that. And if we're not curious about it, why are we calling those things evil? Like, for example, data centers or billionaires or,
Right.
payday loans. Like, if people call me evil and I'm willing to call them evil, like maybe there's more going on beneath the surface and it's not something separate from us. Like, I don't have the devil enter my body and make me be trans. Like, that's who I am naturally. And so, how do all these other things that we see as evil, like, are they actually evil, or, what's going on there?
Right. So the idea of like what is evil? Is evil greed, right? Is evil like the absence of love and choosing self over all of us? Yeah, it's very complex. So
Mhm.
have you actually had people call you evil to your face?
Not to my face, of
Just
course.
like on social media, like
Well,
behind
and,
a
like, in
screen?
drive-bys or, like, in insinuations, like, people say, "Trans people are the devil," but, like, never been like, "There, you're
Right.
trans and you're the devil," right? So it's kind of that
Drive-bys, like people
adjacentness.
are drive-by yelling you're evil to you?
Things like that, yeah.
Are you serious? Like, I'm just trying to get
Yes.
my coffee, man.
When we have, like, people who will protest every, and I use the word protest with air quotes. We have people who protest every Saturday in Chilliwack in the major intersection by the mall, and they started off as being, like, anti-SOGI, and now they're saying things like, "Groom dogs, not kids," and then they have, like, a Jesus flag, and they're saying, like, "Repent," and, like, "This is the work of the devil," and so it's just really escalated to, like, clearly
Mhm.
these are people who think queer people are evil and doing the work of the devil. And so again, it's drive by in that sense, like you're driving around and you're seeing people calling you evil or insinuating that what you're doing is, the work of the devil.
It's interesting because we just did those we just did those 2, episodes on Jesus and how Jesus was all about love and, like, not using your religion as a weapon, and, like, to me, somebody who does that is evil.
I would agree. Yeah.
Yeah,
And
yes.
I so, like, looking at those folks who are calling me evil and saying, "No, they're the ones who are evil," it makes me question, like, am I doing the same to them that they're doing to me? And if they're not knowing who
Mhm.
I am or why I am who I am, making the choices that I've made. And once
Mm,
if I got the chance to get to know them, like, I assume if they got the chance to get to know me, they wouldn't see me that way, and I wonder if I wouldn't see them that way either. But I know for you, like, I've lived a very privileged life of not having suffered at the hands of adults, except neglect, just general
mm,
adults not being around to support me how I need it. But I know that there are folks who have suffered terrible abuses, and they
mhm.
would say, "No, I've looked evil in the eye and it exists." And so for me to say, "Oh, I don't think evil really exists. I think it's just human nature." I don't want to disregard the fact that there are people who've really suffered at the hands of other folks who would say, like, there's something out there. So I'm curious, if you think that evil is something that takes over, it's separate, it's a force that takes over us, or do you think that it's something that's, like, built in to being human?
I mean, I'm so early in my, like, awakening process that it's complicated because, like, you go through the steps of kind of seeing how everything you've been through in your life has gotten you to where you are right now, and that's where you need to be. So, like, being abused by my stepfather. Was he a bad person? Absolutely. I also know he was kind of abused as a child, right? So it's like, if somebody doesn't know any better and their brain was formed in a way where this was normal and like those pathways were created, is that something we can find forgiveness for or not? And I know there are so many people out there that is like, no, that person's evil, you should not forgive them, yada yada. And it's like, I think there's a difference between finding understanding and space for somebody who has done horrible things and like not attaching it to yourself. Because whether it is evil, whether it is an energy that can keep someone somewhere, whether it's just somebody has no love in their heart and they are just focused on their wants and their needs and their greed and will do whatever it takes to get there, like whatever that is, I don't know. And it's really difficult to try to understand how, because like I think corporations can be evil.
Well, that's an interesting kind of segue because the thing about corporations is they are bodiless, soulless, eternal entities who exist solely on paper and are propped up with human
Woo!
bodies and human souls and human labor.
Yeah.
But
Hmm.
they can't themselves be inherently evil because they don't have an existence. So, but they can do really harmful, horrible, extractive, destructive, even murderous things. But the corporation in and of itself is almost like a cover for the work and the actions of the people who are uniting under a certain goal and value system, like Nestle.
Like Nestle.
And it's like CEOs,
Yeah.
like they get into that role specifically because of their ability to look at the opportunity that's there and the networks that are there and the system that's available to them and say, my job here is to make as much money as possible. And they get paid a buttload of money to make decisions that could ultimately end up in like people dying. And they're hired to do that, to like be the soulless face of this company, that they get churned through like a new CEO move in and out and stuff like that. So where does the evil of a corporation lie?
Yeah. And it's in the people, I guess, because the corporation wouldn't exist like that if there weren't people who were so focused on greed that they didn't care who it affects. I think to me, like greed is almost the source of all evil. Like when you're only caring about yourself and how things affect you, it just, I don't know. End podcast.
We found it. We've done it. Eureka.
We did it. We did it. For real though. Cause like if you sat down and like, how can you sit with like a group of indigenous people and have them be like, you are taking our water, right? This water belongs to all of us, not just you. And then you are taking it and you are selling it and you are lining your pockets with money off of something we all need and we are trying to protect. Like, how can you meet with a group of people like that and be like,
Yeah, it's complicated because I've always thought like, oh, the reason all this horrible stuff has happened is just because they didn't know how horrible it's gonna be. And as soon as they find out how horrible it is and has been, that everyone's gonna change. And then one BC party was formed, and I was like, oh, all these people actually like genuinely think that like residential schools were a good thing. And like they're fighting all of this stuff tooth and nail. And I was like, wait a minute, no, no, no. I thought like once you found out, like it was an easy, obvious thing that like we get it now, we're gonna cut. But somehow there's all this pushback and all this like straight up denial of people's lived experiences. And I even like during the federal election, I was on stage at high school, and one of the questions was about like reconciliation. And the one of the other candidates with the purple color, the PPC candidate, he basically just denied the experiences of anyone who was in a residential school. And he said, like, we have to do investigations and find out what's really true. And the whole
what?
room, I know. I was stunned. My stomach was in knots. The entire room was stunned to silence. And then I went on next. And I said,
And
like,
you're like, whoa.
yeah, I said, I actually need to take a minute to just breathe because what he just said was extremely powerful and hurtful. And I want to call that out and acknowledge it because I'm sure we're all feeling that. And as a queer person, I just want to say that like I will always believe you because I know exactly how it feels to have my experience denied and say like
Hmm.
I don't believe you.
Hmm.
And that's the number one most important thing to me. So if you should share this is what your experience is, I'm going to believe you. I don't need to send in some investigator. And yeah, the entire stadium just erupted in applause because they feel the same way we did. Like it's all like how dare you deny our personal experience? But that person, he wasn't evil. He was just extraordinarily ignorant and self-righteous, and he believed that he was the holder of the truth, and he had to be convinced to acknowledge the truth, and that's just simply not true. That's centering he was centering himself because he's, a white man. He was centering his, whiteness. He was holding on to the power in the room, but he didn't have it. We were all equal technically. We were just all citizens having this conversation.
Mhm.
And so, like, his hierarchy evil and the people who try to maintain it evil, and where does that all exist, and yeah, where does power lie? It's all very complicated relationship based like conversation.
How do you stand in front of a room and deny residential schools? I don't. I have no idea. I know I've probably mentioned this a couple times before, but a couple years ago I was at Hoyibi. There's like an Indigenous New Year festival that was at Playland, and they'd brought everyone who was in the room that was a residential school survivor down on the main floor. And it was people from ages like what looked like maybe 25 to like 100, maybe 100 plus, like complete diverse age range. And they were in like a semicircle in the center of like the forum. And I'm going to start crying, but they started like singing this song. And the song was what warriors would sing when they'd returned home from battle. And it was essentially like, you tried to get us, but you didn't. And it was like laughing at them. And it was like all the
Mm,
residential schools. I'm just going to cry. And it was like the most powerful thing I'd ever experienced. And like you could feel the pain and suffering of like all of that, all of those people in that room. Cause like every one of them, probably but me and like a few friends that were with me, had been like directly affected by residential schools. So it was just
mm,
for somebody to not have done any research, not have talked to a single Indigenous person ever about it. Because I remember when I learned about the 60s scoop, I talked to my grandma about it and I was like, this is evil. You guys allowed this to happen. Like I straight up called her immediately after like I listened to this whole podcast. Like, this is evil. How did you let this happen? And she's like, we didn't know. We didn't know that that's what this was.
yeah. My mom was raised in the Catholic Church, and she went to Catholic school until grade 11, 12 when she went to public school. And when she started learning about residential schools, she was so upset. She started crying, and she was like, you know, I know the church lied to me about so many things, but this one's probably one of the most painful because I genuinely believe we were doing good things. We were helping.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's evil
Mhm.
manipulation for like to erase culture so you can gain, right? Like the greed of the land and the minerals and everything that comes from that.
Being a part of the school district has been really eye-opening because we've spoken with a number of First Nations, community members and leaders and like people who actually work in those public school systems and who have been working so hard and so diligently on getting public education to be more inclusive and be like working towards the goals of reconciliation and to be more considerate of indigenous cultures and perspectives and like pedagogies and like learning styles and reflecting indigenous culture and like not just trying to squeeze people all into the one way of like Western way of doing
Yeah.
things, but to actually broaden Western schools to include various pedagogies, including like the local indigenous ones. It's been really eye opening because the number one thing that they constantly say, and as I've also heard from the First Nations Education Council, is that like they really all want to be educated in the same, all in the same topics, and they want to have their kids go to public schools. That's never not been part of like obviously I don't want to flatten everyone's not all the same, but the message has always been like when schools were first offered, there was an interest. They wanted their children to have access to schools, and I was like, I
Mhm.
was shocked. I was like, "Of course." Well, then I was like, "Oh, well, it actually makes sense. Of course, this is a new opportunity to learn about this new way of life. Like Europeans are coming, like they want to be able to trade with them. Like you want to be educated, and the opportunity is there." What made it horrific was the residential school aspect where they were actually removing the kids and then they started doing it by force. And if you didn't send your kid to a school, you would go to jail. You would like be so like the desire for school has always been there. The way the school has been offered has been the underlying problem. And even to today. And so recognizing like I am a part of the system that has done so much what I would argue is evil. I am now myself a part of the system. And there's actually
Mhm.
very little ways that I can pull on it to make drastic change overnight. But I mean, it's great because honestly, the Chilliwack School District is doing amazing things, and we're actually leading British Columbia and a lot of Canada in the work we're doing here. It's been remarkable just to get to be a
I'm
part of the
so
work.
proud of you, Terry. I'm so proud of you. That's awesome.
It's great. There's like we're doing so much out here, and that's because of the diligence and the ability to lean into these really uncomfortable conversations and to not run away from them because they can get uncomfortable, but you have to be willing to do it.
Yeah.
And so, like, that's the thing about what you're saying about forgiveness. Like, where does the forgiveness lie? Where does the like reconciliation lie?
Mm.
And how do you, as a person, not say like, I didn't know to do better, and then you just kind of like throw it off, right? Like, oh,
Yeah.
I didn't know,
Like,
and like
I did
you
not
know now.
directly totally. Like, I did not directly do the evil, but I have benefited from the systems that created it, right?
Hmm.
So it's I think acknowledging that and then just trying to lift everyone up to kind of we should all like some people need more support. Some people can get stuffed, like pay more taxes. Like let's try to like balance things out a bit. Oh man,
Yeah.
it's a lot.
It's all very complicated. There's just so much nuance, and what I've really come to recognize is that it's not just nuance, it's actually straight up paradoxical. Like, you wouldn't think 2 things could exist at once, but yet and be conflicting, but yet they always almost always do. Like, to recognize that corporations are doing things that we see on a bulk, on a whole, as evil. Like, we see that the concept of capitalism is extraction, destruction, and, like,
Mhm.
abandonment. Like, it's not reciprocal, it's not sustainable or, like, cyclical. And we see that as an evil, but when you distill it down, there's no one place that we can actually pin the evil to and say this person here is the reason why things are the way they are. Because when you get down to the nitty gritty, you're like, well, there's just employees who are propping up like the Nestle Corporation. And like this is the director of the water division, and his job is to like make sure all the water that's already been extracted gets distributed. And so his job isn't to consider where the water came from. It's just to do his job and just so I wouldn't call him that's just Fred. He goes home at night. He tucks his children
Oh,
into bed. He's not evil. He's just trying to do a job. He's trying to make his ends meet, build a career. Like, and we argue all the time that citizens of this country should be free to like work whatever job they want and like play within the rules of our laws. But there's no law saying that like we have to consider 7 generations from now to make sure that there's water here or your grandchildren's grandchildren's grandchildren. Like your
yeah.
job is just to think about what's right in front of you today. And so where's the evil? And like that's the paradox is like we see the bigger picture that this is definitely harmful, deeply harmful and not considerate and not reciprocal. And yet when we get down to it, there's no actual one person who's responsible.
Yeah, it's choosing to be a part of a system that hurts people. Like I worked in real estate, really high-end luxury real estate for a long time. And like ethically, I was starting to feel like I'm just doing business. Like I'm helping people who are making money off of the housing market, which so many people are struggling in. Like I'm helping the wrong people be successful. And like now I have like 80% of my clients are counselors. And it's just like I chose to do like my black magic for good. And you can also choose to do that, right? Like there are places you can go. There are subtle changes you can make in your career to do something that you feel better about. And maybe you're just not thinking about how what you're doing affects others. But I mean, it comes like, do we all have that angel and devil? Like, is that real? Do we all have the little voice in our head that's telling us to do the right moral thing? And that little voice in our head that's telling us to care about ourselves? Is that like, what do you think about that? Do you have that? Do you ever have the like,
I mean, I would consider it more like for me, it's like doubt, like maybe my insecurities are the devil on one shoulder, and then
mhm,
like the conscious thought, trying to like, cognitive behavior therapy, maybe the angel, like, don't listen to him. Like, he's just a dick. Don't
right.
like, don't listen.
Yeah.
And you're better than that. So I could say for me, that's my angel and devil.
Hmm.
But it can also cause me to behave in ways that aren't aligned with my values, right? Because if my insecurity, my devil is like, you just said something and it's really embarrassing. You should be embarrassed and then try to fix it or something like that, right? And then I'll maybe be like, oh, I didn't mean to say that. And then, like, I don't know, behave in a way that is not in alignment with my values because my insecurity won over. And I mean, I wouldn't call that evil, but I could see how that kind of thing be perpetuated as evil because ego, like the devil, a lot of times is considered
Hmm.
like ego, saying like you really need that, you deserve that, like you know you deserve that diamond ring. You work really hard, or the government doesn't deserve to pay your taxes. Those people are lazy. Like you work really hard, like that kind of where it becomes leaning more into like greed and like self-centeredness and not caring so much about like the way that you are operating in relation to everything around you.
Yeah.
And like there are some theories that say like if you focus too much on the material, on like the way your body like looks, like to the point of just being materialistic and like buying all the best stuff and having like diamond rings and the biggest house and like the nicest car, and
Greed.
you're just yeah, the material, if you're just hyper focused on the material and you don't care about the relationality in your life, like you just are there to take and to take as much as you can and to like use people, that some folks, like some traditions, some theories, philosophies would argue that's like kind of what evil would be argued as, or like the devil in the sense. You're away from God, you're away from consciousness.
Yeah, I it reminds me of like I can't remember who this creator was, but she was talking about narcissists, like what they were on a spiritual level, and it was just somebody who was completely disconnected from their higher self is like what a narcissist is. And it's like I think that could be argued like is evil just being disconnected from the part of you that's telling you to do the right thing?
Could be, could be.
And then are there traps keeping people there? I would love to know, like, 'cause you can see the sort of traps that are keeping people in these states of anger, right? Like there's Fox News telling people trans people are going to hurt their kids, or you know what I mean? Like you can see the systems in place that keep people in those states of ignorance, like it's a trap. So like someone like that who's had their education taken away from them, they're being spoon-fed garbage day in and day out. While that person may be holding up a picket sign, are we going to give that person space for understanding there are systems in place like keeping them there? Because the people who benefit from them having those signs up are the people lining their pockets with money, right? Like it's difficult to kind of parse out where the evil starts and where it ends and how to fix it.
Yeah. And like from the conversations we were having about Jesus, and even from like Viktor Frankl's philosophies, we can really understand the purpose of compassion, not only for like as a tool to help the world get to a better place, but also as a personal tool to help yourself from falling into a place of fear and in a sense submission to the power that they're trying to have over you. Because
Mhm.
like if I gave into the people at five at the intersection, I can want to call it five corners, it's not five corners, it's Lakakak and Vetter. If I keep giving into those people and say
Hold
like,
on,
oh,
that's the
these
most say that slowly out loud for the people not familiar with Chilliwack.
Lakakak and Vetter, I think they're both indigenous words, but I
Yeah,
don't know the
it's just
source of them.
the funniest. No, it's just funny. I'm always like,
Well, the funniest road in Chilliwack has got to be Annis Road, because a lot of people say it looks like Anus Road, but it's Annis.
Annis and Luckacut.
They don't intersect, but yes. Anyway,
Not today.
if I if I were to like give in to those people and think that they had power over me or in any way power over this community to like convince them all that I am evil, and then I acted in a way that as if that was true, that everyone thought I was evil, then I would be living my life in fear all the time,
Mhm.
and I would be acting out of fear, which wouldn't be in alignment with my true self. I wouldn't get to be present because I'm just scared all the time, and I would be submissive to them and their opinions and give away all my power. But instead, I just kind of look at them in a compassionate lens. I say like, whatever the heck they have going on in their lives, I kind of feel a little bit of pity, because that's a lot of fear to be living from, to think all those horrible things are
Mhm.
happening to children. And if something like that actually was happening, if what they believed was happening was actually happening, it
Mhm.
would be horrible. And so to live in
Yeah.
a world in my own head where that's happening, I have enough compassion from my own experience to know that like whatever they're going through cannot be good. Whatever the reason they're doing this, it can't be coming from a very mentally stable place. And so I have a lot of compassion for them, and in a sense that actually liberates me from the power that they're trying to have over me with their fear. And so in that way,
Right.
I am getting to
Yeah.
choose alignment and positivity rather than like ego and
Why don't we like how do we take that energy of those people and focus it towards like the Epstein situation where we
oh
have
god.
like right? How do we do
You know, you got me
a like
there.
refocus? We could just refocus this.
Yeah, I was, you know what? This whole time I was like, evil doesn't exist, but you know what? End this podcast right now, because you're right. The Epstein class is where all the evil lies. The end.
I think yeah. Yeah, there's 2 people in prison, they're both women or something, like, we got Ghislaine. I know how you say her name, that's how I say it, and I believe it was, like, the finance person, like, the person who, like, moved the money around, I believe she was a woman. Mildly accurate
The most
podcast.
marginalized type of, yeah. So it's
Yeah.
we've watched so many documentaries where somehow it's like a white dude doing stupid shit, and then he somehow gets a black dude involved, and the black guy is the only one who gets actually punished. And it's happened so many times. It's just like, yeah, don't be involved in crime as a marginalized person because you'll be the one to take the fall. Period.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
yeah, I don't know how we could possibly have compassion towards that because I mean, I did watch a documentary actually about a pedophile whose granddaughter made the granddaughter made a documentary. She was a documentarian and
Mhm.
she was harmed, her sister was harmed, her mom was harmed, her aunts were harmed, and they found
Gosh.
a whole bunch of footage that the grandpa took and a bunch of other stuff. So they found like he was like a serial
Yeah,
Epstein. And so she did this documentary on him and he was like this dying old man. And the whole time he was like slowly dying, they're just like, "We love you, grandpa." And then they'd be like, "Why did you hurt us? But we love you." And it was so bizarre to watch them have this, like, again, this paradoxical experience of being like, "You hurt me
yeah.
so deeply and you hurt so many people. And also you're my
Jeez.
grandpa and you raised me."
Just a note to everyone out there, just because they're family does not mean you have to love them or be around them if they are unsafe for
Yes,
you.
100%.
Get out. Make your own
Yeah.
family.
So she actually argued in the book that if our society could do better at having these uncomfortable conversations, that there are people out there who are sick, who need support. They need to be seen for their sickness and they need to have a safe place to bring that sickness forward before they do any harm. Because had her grandpa been able to say, I'm having these really dark thoughts and I need someone to help me before I act on them, so many people would have not been, I potentially not been harmed because he would have had a place to go, like AA, but for pedos. But that nothing like that really exists, and so the harm continuously gets perpetuated underground behind the doors because there's nowhere for people to get support or safety, even after. And this is an argument she made, even after he was found guilty of the crime, spent time in jail, and then served his sentence. Even afterwards, there was no support for him, and he continued to harm people. So, like, in a way, you could argue that the compassion we need to have is that evil like this exists inside human beings, and the more we can reduce stigma around these issues that people have, the more likely we are to reduce the harm that they continue to perpetuate.
Everything you're saying is completely accurate, but I am so uncomfortable with the idea of, like, not that pedophiles need help, but, like, the idea of trusting that the help worked. You know what I mean? Like,
It strikes me as very fascinating that as a society, we have institutionalized disabilities and like brown and colored bodies, and yet almost perpetuated the most harmful type of people up to leadership and like protected them and sealed them when it almost seems to be the opposite. Like
it's by
predatory people
design.
who there
We're
is
the
a
loud
structure
ones.
built by yeah. I mean, I don't have any data whatsoever, but I am like I'm convinced that anyone who points the finger at queer people should probably has some demons that they're fighting deep down,
Mhm.
and it's a cover. And we found that time and time again to be true. Yeah. But it's really does feel like I don't know if you've ever seen that movie where Tom Cruise plays it's like the thought police essentially where they
Minority Report?
yeah,
I was gonna
Minority
mention that,
Report.
like, 3 minutes ago. I was gonna mention that where we could just scan people's brains and be like,
Yeah.
"Pedo, you go in the pedo line," and we just, like, zap that out.
Yeah, I think that that is where we're starting to find a lot of pressures on the system, the hierarchies and systems built for people who want to dominate. Like this is a system of dominance built by people who wanted to dominate the
Mhm.
land, the people, to make as much money as well, it's not even really fair to say they wanna do it to make as much money as they could. At the time that our countries were established, people were escaping monarchies and, like, lords, and people who were unelected leaders who hoarded the wealth and the money and the power, and everyone else just worked for them underneath them, and there was no ability to move up in the world, like, very limited unless you happen to marry someone or your daughter married someone, and so the old systems that we were trying to run away from were c they almost took, like, some good stuff, but then a bunch of bad stuff and, like, made it what it is today, and now we're almost, like, realizing that we're back in that place where, like, "Hey, actually, we're just seeing a lot of bad stuff, and we need to once again repackage, repurpose, rebuild." something new because we're starting to see a lot of the same issues of like hierarchy, power structures, unelected people doing unelected things, not in the name of good of all, and a lot of destruction of property and a lot of hoarding of wealth and a lot of people not really being able to move around and like still a lot of class restrictions and stuff like that. So yeah, like this is what I mean when I really delve into a lot of the evils and the historical evils. You can understand why things went the way they went and what those people were thinking and why they were doing what they were doing. And a lot of it was self-preservation mixed with ignorance and prejudice.
It's the us versus them instead of we're all in this together.
Yeah.
So this podcast started off real fun. That was me. And it's gotten a little dark, which is fair based on the
It's
topic.
true. You were like, let's do one that's not dark. And I was like, can we talk about evil?
People need a break.
Like it maybe represents where I'm at right now because I'm really going through this process of like, what are my values? What drives me? What's just trauma and like trauma responses and like what serves me and what doesn't? Like, and then not who am I, but who do I want to be? Because I don't believe that you are any one thing prescribed and solid. It is like always an ongoing choice, and you should be in relation with your identity that's constantly emerging. And that's all new. And so, like, I'm really trying to uncover like what is evil to me and like who is evil to me. And it does the concept of seeing people as evil serve me. And especially like as being a queer person, a trans person, and a politician in this day and age in British Columbia, I have experienced dehumanization on so many different levels and in so many different ways. And like one of my biggest insecurities is not really being understood, like being misunderstood. That, yeah, like this concept of evil is just constantly bubbling up for me. And it's like, I don't like being dehumanized. And so saying that something is evil, in a sense, to me, that's like dehumanizing it. It's creating that othering that you've mentioned. Right? Like to say, "Oh, those people are evil," is that like they're not human. They're other, and so I can treat them however I want because they're evil. And like that,
Right.
when you think about like the Nazis, that's the way they painted Jewish people as evil and as doing evil. And so it justified all the things that they did, which we many of us now see as very, very evil. And so like I really don't like the concept of dehumanizing people, even when they do extraordinarily
Yes. And
vile
it's never
things.
too late. It's never ever too late for somebody to start making the right choice. People are capable of change. It's just harder for some than others based on the type of environment they grew up or the people they have surrounding them, or if they're just struggling to get food on the table and they're doing some like dark stuff to support their family, like that's survival. Like like you're surviving, right? So there's so much complexity that goes into the eye of evil, or the idea of evil. But I will say I do believe corporations can be evil. Like the collection of energy and the ideals and morals. And like you said, there is no humanity attached to it other than the people working to keep that entity running. And that like people who are abusive, people who murder, people who do bad things. What are the reasons for that? Is there mental illness involved? Is there a way we can help these people? Yes, absolutely. I'm not saying it's easy. Like, is it easy for me to forgive the people who have harmed me? No. Does it serve me at all to hold on to any of that? No. With like my assault, like that man who over 4 dozen women reached out to my civil lawyers about him, who he said on the stand he's treated over 100,000 women, who when I spoke to an RCMP officer about my case, one who was not attached to my case, he said the fact that he did this to you, he's done this so many times before because he was so comfortable in it. You have to fight this to the end. You could argue that that man is evil, right? You could definitely argue that that man is evil. What does that do for me to hold on to that idea? All I can do is like take that energy and refocus it on how can I take something terrible that's happened to me and turn it into the best possible situation. And that is like fighting for provincial and like federal changes to make sure assaults like mine don't happen to other people. It's just like how, if there are some of us who are able to see the bad things in the world, see the evil in the world, and see how we can fix it, see how we can move things forward, see how we can create environments where whatever that evil thing is doing, creating systems that will do the opposite of that or prevent that evil from showing. Like that's maybe where we should be focusing, like how do we create the anti-Nestle?
Yeah, the antidote,
It's
the
just like a
anti-Nestle.
chocolate, an upside down chocolate bunny.
Inverted. But I appreciate you like bracing that about your assault as well, because the act of evil undoubtedly, like he was causing immense harm for, whatever his reasons, evil. But and though, like, you recognize that anyone could do that in that like, it wasn't because he was some demon. It was he was a human being capable of doing that to you out of like his human nature. And to say that he was a demon means that, like, a future person in that position, that, well, he was so nice, I can't imagine that he would ever do something like that, which is what a lot of people say about people who do
Hmm.
evil. Like, "Oh, no, he was such a nice person, he was such a nice neighbor, like, he was such a good whatever, 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 excuses, like, I can't imagine him
Hmm.
doing something like that." If we paint people who do things horribly as otherly, as, like, the devil, as evil, and then the next time someone's in the space with someone like him, they might say, "Well, he doesn't look like the devil," or, like, "He doesn't look evil, so I trust him." So, for you to say, like, this was a human man who did evil things, any human man can also do the same evil things. Don't trust someone just because they have a doctor's or they have a medical thing next to their name or whatever the heck it
Paid
is.
$200 for a accreditation that said the term medical and surgical and it meant nothing. That one of those. Yeah.
Exactly. People who can do extraordinarily evil things still look human, and they could be in any position in life. And
Hmm.
to dehumanize people who do horrible things and say that they're like otherly or they're the devil, that's a work of Satan, creates a space of trust to people who may look trusting. And so to say,
Hmm.
like, no, anyone is capable of such horrendous evil, and you need to have like a protection around yourself at all times, and not just to trust people because they're in a position of authority. They have
Hmm.
surgical and medical stuff on
Yeah.
their license, or they're a pastor, or they're, a leader,
Hmm.
whatever the reason is. Just because they don't look evil doesn't mean that they aren't capable of.
Yeah. Everyone I've ever been hurt by has been a person in a position where they were supposed to protect me. So, I mean, whether or not there is evil, whether evil is just like consciousness traps, whether evil is not understanding, whether evil is like greed, there are things that exist. Like there is a lot of darkness that exists. And what can we do on an individual level to kind of combat that? And I'm a big fan of like see something, say something. Like if you see somebody doing something not so kind. Like there's FIFA going on around me right now.
Mm.
So there's like a lot of people who are really annoyed while they're driving and like being rude and honking and like swerving around. And there's one man who was just like laying on his horn. I'm like walking past his car and I just looked at him and I'm like, people are like so angry when they're going to have fun. And then I just like got in my car and then he was like starting to yell at me and I just like closed my door. Just like didn't, you know what I mean? Just like people who are kind and people who see the good in things. If we start being just as vocal as like the angry people, maybe we can scare them into being nice publicly. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I'm currently reading, and I've just started, but I'm currently reading a book called Emergent Strategy by Adrienne Marie Brown. And
Mhm.
she says that, like, transformation has to start and be at a personal level between you and the relationships that you have, and that the whole mirrors the individual. And that is true for like everything, like
Which hole?
cellularly as well. I can't believe I didn't see that coming. So her advice, that I've picked up so far, again, just started reading it, but is that the most transformative thing you could do is, like you said, work on your personal, individual relationships, your relationship with yourself, number one, your relationship that, like, the most directly around you, and then your relationship with also like earth and time. And so, no, I really like the social construct of evil being this like way of being, this like self-destructive, close-minded, non-holistic, individualistic, like greedy way of being, where the only thing that matters is your personal goals and like what
Mhm.
serves you, and not in this big relation to everything around you, and that you're feeding it your humanity every time you let it control you. And I can relate to this myself in that, like, when I'm feeling really insecure, I'm feeding it my humanity by like detaching from people around me and not being curious and being really judgmental and giving it all my time and energy and my power and letting other people like feel like they have power over me. And so when they say things like, we don't want you in our town, I say like, well, I don't want you in my town, instead of just being like too fucking bad, and having a better relationship with it. Instead I'm feeding it my energy and my time and my power and letting it control
Mm-hmm.
me.
Mm-hmm.
And so having a better personal relationship with that like social construct of this entity that wants your humanity, instead trying to like protect your power from it and be like, I want to be here with me and not like feed it. I want to
Mm-hmm.
hold it back and ground myself in what I really care about and take the time to like build those relationships and be curious and lean in and be uncomfortable and be unsure and be messy instead of being perfect and make mistakes instead of like holding back and all those things. That's kind of how you change the world, because you influence people around you to start doing the same thing and have more compassion and have more grace, and you can be a real leader in your community that way, is just but to like the extent of what you're capable of. Like don't take on more than you're capable of. Just like you can be a leader in your own household, with your neighbors, with people in
Mm-hmm.
your school, and that is huge. Like you don't have to extend yourself to become a leader. You already are where you sit right
Everyone is. And like if
now.
we all do like our small part to, I mean, there's such an imbalance right now between like the people who are the most vocal are the ones who are the most filled with hatred, it feels like, right? So it's how can we also be vocal with compassion, but also like a firmness that like allows us to hold on to this power that we are trying to recreate as a community, and we're trying to claw all this stuff back from that pendulum swing since like the Obama era.
Well, thanks for going on this trip to the land of evil with me. Yeah, I guess we're a little bit closer than I suspected we might end up, but yeah, don't let the evil forces win.
And if you were triggered at all during this podcast, it's Teri's fault because I wanted to do something fun.
Next time. Next time.
All right. Have a good weekend, everybody. Love you. Bye.
Love you. Bye. Remember, you don't have to have it all figured out. We sure don't. But you still get to ask the big questions, even the ones that don't have answers.
Thanks for being here with us. This has been Maple and Myrrh. We'll be back soon, or maybe you'll just stumble on the next podcast right when you need to.
If you want to support the podcast, you can find us on Patreon. Bye.